Transmitter device activated. Coordinates set for Earth 2.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the legacy of their Golden Age characters in the Silver and Bronze Ages of comics. I'm Peter Watson.
And I'm David Steele. Welcome back. Thank you for joining us for issue 6 of the 1970s DC Sandman, the final regular issue to be published.
Gasp.
Another issue was prepared, but it didn't see the light of day till much, much later in an issue of one of the DC Digest comics. And as it's a Christmas-themed issue, we'll probably maybe do it for Christmas this year. Wouldn't that be nice? But issue 6, published on the 23rd of September 1975, according to Mike's. Peter's going to tell us about the cover.
We have the cigar band at the top with that close-up of a freaked-out-looking Sandman face. There's a very small Sandman logo. Then we have DC, the line of superstars. And the other regulars are then shown. Jed, Brute, and Glob. Then we have the full The Sandman logo, which is strange underneath the smaller Sandman logo. Master of Nightmares, approved by the Comics Code Authority. Now, the main image in the cover. There is a giant sea vessel that looks as if it's supposed to look like a giant fish, but looks nothing really like a giant fish. It's more like a dome with jaggy bits in it. There are two hideous characters within it. They seem to be in a dinghy within this giant fish vessel. There's a full moon looming in the background to take a drink, people. The two hooded characters in this dinghy, one's got a 7 on his chest, the other one's got a 2 in his chest. And the one with the 2 in his chest has lassoed the feet of what appears to be a comatose Sandman. Gasp. And he is saying,
"We have him, Dr. Spider. The Sandman is dead."
Very dynamic.
Yeah, it looks kind of like the Sandman is just chilling, enjoying some R&R in his own personal isolation tank.
Yep, floating on top of the salty Dead Sea.
Yeah, it's very effective though. It's a shame. I'll show Peter via our video call here. You can see that the nice full moon in my copy has been ruined by a 10p Thornton Porter price stamp.
My 10p Thornton Porter stamp is over the M of the Sandman logo.
Oh, so it is. Let's see the clear full moon then. Oh, that's great.
Oh, well.
I'll have to try and buy another copy, listeners, or something. Watch out on Instagram and see whose copy I take a photograph of to plug it. So, the final issue. It's an interesting one, this, because we, at first, as we've said in the past, I'm sure, Peter and I were just going to do issue 1, but we enjoyed issue 1 so much that we decided to do the whole series. And I'm very glad that we have.
Absolutely, yeah. They've been rip-roaring fun, as we've said, every single episode.
Yep. It's not too long since we did issue 5, if you remember that. The shift in the status quo of lead character Jed as his uncle died fighting a giant sea monster and he was taken in by his creepy, scary Jack Kirby rendered family. So this issue we pick up and we see what's happening. So we begin, as we often do, with a caption.
This is Jed, young friend and helpmate to the legendary Sandman. Tonight, as he sleeps in his bed on his aunt and uncle's farm, he has a horrible dream. A dream in which he can feel himself drowning. Help! I'm drowning!
Yes, we see Jed. He's in the middle of a wide expanse of presumably ocean water. Lots of Kirby dots on the surface of the sea for emphasis. In the background behind him, we see a large, weird-looking, open-mouthed submersible in the style of a fish, a bit like the one that we saw on the cover. Above all this, we see the large, carved-out-of-rock, the Sandman logo in
The plot to destroy Washington, D.C.
We then get the credits for the issue.
Script, Michael Fleischer. Editor, Joe Orlando. Art, Jack Kirby and Wally Woods.
Interesting. There's some more captioning.
But Jed is not the only witness to this frightening dream, for even now, in his dream dome, the Sandman scans his monitors with mounting alarm.
Yes, we see the Sandman looking at some equipment, and it's beautifully rendered as always. Lots of weird shapes and cogs and wheels in a very distinct Kirby style. The first panel of page 2, we can see that Glob and Brute are standing in their glass canisters behind him. The machine in front of Sandman is digging away merrily as he looks at what's going on in Jed's dream. Glob looks kind of pretty chill, but Brute has his arms folded and is smiling and says, "Look at that nightmare Jed's having, Sandman. The little punk's getting scared straight out of his gourd." "Quiet, Brute. Can't you hear the nightmare alarm? Something's wrong here. Dead wrong. That nightmare is not passing into Jed's perceptors through the proper fantasy channels." "You mean someone's?" "Exactly, Brute. That nightmare is originating at some unauthorized source, and if I don't intervene at once, Jed may be seriously harmed." You're such a party pooper, Sandman. The fun's just beginning.
Leaping into his ejector tube, the Sandman is catapulted instantaneously into the fantasy world of Little Jed's nightmare.
Yeah, no messing about. It was a great shot of the Sandman unusually emerging from the ejector tube, or looking up at it instead of sort of side on or above as we've done previously. We see him vaulting into the dream as we hear Jed crying from the water.
Help! Help!
Sandman drops down towards him, saying, "Easy, Jed. You'll be all right, lad." "Great Godfrey, something's wrong here. This isn't Jed's dream phantasm. It's an android of some kind." And indeed we see that Jed's face looks a little mask-like, and we can hear a loud Sandman continues, "And unless I miss my guess, it's about to..." Boom! Sandman is hurled backwards in the final panel of page 2 by a massive explosion.
In the wake of the explosion's deafening roar, the Sandman floats lifelessly on the water's surface, oblivious to the bizarre sea creature swimming placidly nearby.
Yes, this looks very much like the creature Peter described from the cover. Looks like a large fish, but if we look more closely, we can see that it seems to have a bit of a metallic sort of feel to it. Wide orange eyes peering above the surface of the water as the Sandman floats in front of it.
And then
the creature's mouth opens, and paddling out in an inflatable rubber dinghy are two familiar-looking fellows wearing brown monk-style robes, their faces hidden by masks. One has a large number 7 emblazoned at his chest. The other is a number 2. They're both paddling ferociously towards the Sandman as number 7 says, "Paddle swiftly. The master is waiting."
Moments later,
see one of them lifting Sandman into the dinghy and saying, "The Dream Lord appears undamaged." That was number 2. Number 7 on his radio, his big chunky walkie-talkie, he's speaking into it, and he says, "We have him, Dr. Spider. He is not dead, sir." And then we hear a familiar voice crackling over the radio.
"Of course he's not dead, you idiot. He's virtually indestructible as long as he remains in this dream dimension. Bring him back to the Dimensocraft immediately. I want us to phase back into the reality sector at once."
"Yes, Dr. Spider," says number 7. Beautiful panel here showing lots of Kirby-esque planetary shapes hovering in the air above them.
And soon afterward, back at the Dream Dome.
Yes, we see Glob and Brute in their canisters. Brute casually standing with his hands clasped behind his back, and a Sandman is standing in front of them. Glob says,
"Sandman, boy, are we glad to see you. What happened?"
"Yeah, tell us what you've been up to, sport. We saw you go bluey in the explosion, but then the monitors went on the fritz." "It was just a minor nightmare emergency, Brute. Nothing I couldn't handle." The next panel is a quick shift in the point of view as we see the Sandman on a screen being observed by none other than Dr. Spider. Dr. Spider is holding a microphone up to his mouth using one of his many robotic hands. And we see that he is speaking the lines that the Sandman is saying, as they say simultaneously, "Now, get out of those glass tubes, both of you." Back in the lab, Sandman, Fez him, continues, "I need you both for a vitally important mission." "Is that so?"
"Gee, Sandman, we're glad to help you. But you know Brute and me can't get out of here unless you blow on your hypnosonic whistle."
Yes, of course. I must have just, forgot," says the Sandman. We see him reaching into his glove with his other gloved hand and pulling out the whistle.
As the whistle is blown, Brute and Glob are freed from their glass tubes by the ultrasonic vibes.
The ultrasonic vibes, they sound like they supported menswear, don't they? Yes, Brute and Glob free. They walk over behind Sandman, who's approaching the ejection tube, saying, "Okay, you nightmares, follow me."
"Right behind you, Sandman."
Brute pauses at this point and says, "You two go ahead, why don't you? I'll follow you as soon as I finish combing my hair."
"But, Brute, you don't have any hair."
"Yeah, I know. That's why it may take a few extra minutes. Don't worry, I'll be right behind you." And then we see Sandman swinging into the ejector tube, with Glob holding on to his shoulders. "All right, Brute," says Sandman, "but hurry. This mission is a matter of life and death." We then cut back to Dr. Spider's laboratory. Dr. Spider will remind you of what he looks like. Sort of grotesque, obese figure with no arms, apart from his weird 8 robotic artificial limbs. A mess of spiky orange hair. He wears red goggles, and his body is sort of driven around on a weird metallic base, which is a speaker-type grill at the front. We speculated, I think, last time on his similarities to, like, a cross between Davros and Dr. Octopus.
With a bit of mojo thrown in.
Yeah.
Yes.
We see that Dr. Spider and his number 9 are observing Sandman's laboratory on their screen. You can see Brute's face as number 9 says, "Do you think the muscle-bound one suspects anything, Master?"
Brute, I doubt it. He has all the intellect of a low-grade moron.
We cut to the exterior shot of their big artificial fish submarine. A full moon hangs in the background to take a drink. As Dr. Spider continues,
Before long, our Sandman android will have lured both of the Sandman's grotesque nightmare companions into our clutches. And then we shall be able to dispose of all of them at our leisure.
Moments later.
and we see what we now know as a Sandman android descending from the air down towards the big fishy submarine. Still hanging on the back is Glob, who says,
Where are we going, Sandman? What's this life and death mission you've been talking about?
"You'll see, Glob. We'll be there in a minute." And then we see the mouth of the fish opening up to admit Glob and Sandman. Again, take a drink. There's a full moon hanging in the background as Glob says,
Sandman, this weird sea creature, it's really some sort of subsea vessel.
"That's right, Glob." And then we see that they're both standing in front of Dr. Spider, who says,
It's actually an ingeniously camouflaged dimensional craft, capable of passing back and forth between the reality and dream dimensions.
The Sandman android stands still as Glob exclaims,
Dr. Spider, we thought you were dead. Come on, Sandman, let's...
and we see that Sandman has pulled a gun.
Hey, wait a minute. You're not the Sandman. You're some sort of...
But Glob is cut off as the Sandman android fires the gun he's holding, which unleashes a bolt of energy and a massive zzz sound effect. Dr. Spider exclaims,
Excellent. Now hurry. Get him into a geodesic cell before he shakes off the concentrated electrical shock.
and the hooded figure standing beside Dr. Spider, whose number we don't see at the moment, replies, "Yes, Master," guessing it's number 11.
Soon.
We can see that the Sandman is being held captive in a sort of giant glass, multifaceted dome. We see that the unconscious form of Glob is being dragged off by a hooded figure wearing the number 6. Dr. Spider is standing with his number 2, and Dr. Spider is saying,
Good, good. When Brute tries to follow, we'll get him too. Now dive to 700 feet at once and set a course for Secret Island Fortress number 114.
Listeners, you would have seen Peter's face there as he had to say Secret Island Fortress number 114. It was great. Number 2 bows and says, "Yes, Dr. Spider." Then Dr. Spider yells, to no one in particular,
And send out my prepared ultimatum to the President of the United States via shortwave.
From inside his multifaceted glass-domed prison, Sandman says, "I don't know what you've got in mind, Dr. Spider, but I do know you'll never get away with it."
But I will, Sandman. I will. It was a simple matter for me and my associates to enter the dream dimension via this Dimenso craft, and then use my fantasy simulator to plant the dream inside Jed's mind that led you into my trap. And now that I have you in my clutches, and this,
And we see that Dr. Spider is holding the Sandman's whistle.
the world's greatest source of hypnosonic power, in the palm of my hand, President Ford will have no choice but to obey my every command.
A mention of President Jerry Ford there. There's a quick, slow dissolve.
Meanwhile, at the farm where Jet has been living ever since the tragic death of his grandfather, dawn is breaking.
And we see the cock of the farm crowing and making so much noise.
And inside the farmhouse,
We see poor Jed sitting up in bed, pulling on his socks as he thinks,
I'm exhausted, almost as if I didn't get any sleep last night. I know I had a really creepy nightmare, but I can't remember what it was about.
thinks Jed as he pulls his shirt on. Very moody lighting there for that close-up. Very good.
presently,
We see Jed's horrible family sat around the table. There's Aunt Clarice, Uncle Barnaby, his cousin Bruce, and his cousin Susan. Jed is walking in, carrying a massive plate of pancakes. Uncle Barnaby's reading his newspaper. His cousins are sitting with anticipation as Aunt Clarice says, "What's the matter with you, Jed? Can't you move any faster? You're going to make our pancakes cold before you even put them on the table."
I'm sorry, Aunt Clarice.
Irritating cousin Bruce then says,
We're all going to the carnival today, aren't we, Mom?
munching on some pancakes, Aunt Clarice replies, "Yes, darling, we are,"
Oh boy, I like carnivals.
exclaims Jed. But Aunt Clarice says, "Oh, I'm afraid you won't be able to go with us, Jed. someone has to stay behind and mind the farm. Maybe next year, when the carnival comes back again.
Oh.
Says Jed. And Jed's face here is so neutral, you just know that he's internalising all this rage and he's going to remember it. Cousin Bruce pipes up with,
Tell you what, Jed, I'll let you go in my place if you let me have that fancy whistle you're wearing.
to which Jed says,
No, Bruce, I can't. The whistle was a present from someone. And so?
the family are piling into the car. Uncle Barnaby's the last one to get in and he says,
We'll probably be back late, Jed. Don't forget to milk the cows, collect the eggs, chop the firewood, and clean the house while we're gone.
and the very resigned Jed, holding his hat in his hand, says,
Yes, Uncle Barnaby.
and as the car drives off, leaving huge amounts of exhaust fumes behind it, Jed wipes away a tear and says,
Have a good time. All morning long and all afternoon, poor Jed slaves bravely over his chores on the farm.
yes, we see a pig standing by as Jed walks past with a big armful of firewood. Obviously been very busy.
So that by the time evening comes and the family returns home again...
Looks at Jed standing with a mop as the cousins walk in and cousin Bruce says,
Hey, Jed, look at what I won.
Bruce is holding a football by the looks of things and Susan's holding a large teddy bear and she says, Yeah, Jed, me too.
Jed is so exhausted that he can hardly keep himself awake.
Yes, we see his horrible family all tucking into their evening meal as Aunt Clarice says, Jed, you know I abhor little boys who put their elbows on the table. For that, you're going to bed without any supper. Poor Jed, he can hold his head up because he's so tired.
Yes, Aunt Clarice. And soon afterward, Jed climbs into his bed and falls fast asleep.
See Jed in his bed, indeed. Very carelessly, he's left the ultrasonic whistle the Sandman gave him lying on a bedside table.
Unaware of the furtive figure creeping silently into his room and reaching for the magic whistle once given to him by the Sandman.
And we hear cousin Bruce thinking,
I'll teach him to be selfish with his old whistle.
Bruce tiptoes quietly back to his room and...
we see Bruce blowing on the whistle. As he does so, he thinks,
It sure makes a weird kind of noise. I wonder what...
there's a flash of blue energy, and a familiar voice says, Something I could do for you, fancy pants,
A monster!
exclaims Bruce as Brute stands in front of him. Brute says, A monster? Well, I like that. You ain't exactly Robert Redford, you know, Twinkle Toes. In the first panel of page 10, we see that Brute has one of those sacks that they've got, full of monsters, full of nightmare fuel, as he leans forward saying, Here, brat, have a couple of vile things, why don't you? And he opens the bag and we see a little weird, scary rat leaping out and a couple of weird snaky lizards and creepy crawly type things venturing forth.
Lulled to sleep by the sound of the magic whistle and overrun by disgusting creepy crawly things, Bruce is tormented by hideous nightmares.
Yes, we see Bruce lying back in his bed, waving his arms and legs as dozens of the little scary creatures, some of which actually do look like ones we've seen already in the series, swarm up all over him as he yells,
Save me! Save me! Ah!
And moments later...
we see a pair of large hands gently shaking the shoulders of Jed to rouse him from his slumber. Rise and shine, champ. It's time for us guys to swing into action,
Uh-huh.
says Jed. He sits up, rubbing his eyes, and says,
What's happening, Mr. Brute?
I don't know exactly, kid, but I got a sneaking hunch the boss man has went and got himself into another jam, as usual.
Meanwhile, in the labyrinthine inner recesses of Dr. Spider's secret island fortress number 114...
Is it worth pointing out that Dr. Spider's secret island fortress number 114 didn't support the Montrose Avenue at the Birmingham Foundry in 1998? It probably isn't. Dr. Spider and a few of his hooded goons are standing watching a large television screen. We can see Sandman still being held captive in the multifaceted glass dome. There's a newsreader giving it plenty, as Dr. Spider is saying.
The nightly network newscast is almost over. Blast it! Why haven't they said anything about the president's answer to my ultimatum?
And we see the newsreader, who might be based on a real person. I don't know. We're going to need one of our US listeners to tell us. We can hear him saying, And now for a story in the lighter side of the news. Some lunatic crackpot calling himself Dr. Spider has just sent an ultimatum to President Gerald Ford. Dr. Spider, unimpressed by this, he yells,
Crackpots!
The newsreader continues, bragging that he has captured the legendary Sandman and intends to destroy Washington, D.C. at midnight with the Sandman's, get this folks, magic whistle. unless the president resigns at once and lets Dr. Spider take over the government. Well, President Ford has an answer for you, Dr. Spider. He says you can do all the damage you want with your, magic whistle, but whatever you do, please don't try to kidnap Santa Claus with Christmas only a few months away. And if that's not some foreshadowing, I don't know what is. Unimpressed, Dr. Spider says,
Those impudent fools! They treated my ultimatum like a joke. Well, I'll show them what it means to trifle with a true master of evil.
As the Sandman looks on, he thinks to himself, he's completely mad. I've got to get out of here. Dr. Spider continues to rant.
In a few hours, it will be midnight. One mighty blast on the hypnosonic whistle and goodbye, Washington.
See Sandman feeling his way around his glass prison, and he thinks, there's got to be some sort of weak spot. Dr. Spider gets a manic close-up as he rants.
It will be goodbye, Lincoln Memorial. Goodbye, U.S. Treasury Building.
And behind him, Sandman establishes there's a hairline crack where the modules join. Now, if only I can...
Summoning every ounce of his Herculean strength, the courageous Dream Master breaks free of his geodesic prison.
There is a massive crash as Sandman breaks out of the glass, fragments flying everywhere. Dr. Spider yells,
Stop him, you imbeciles! He's broken loose!
With a quick
pow,
Sandman sends one of the goons flying, who only has time to say, huh? See? I don't even need my hypnosonic whistle to put you two to sleep, says the Sandman as he lifts up two of the other monkey figures and slams their heads together. From his glass prison, Glob exclaims,
Attaboy, Sandman!
Sandman turns to the baddie of the piece, saying, You're next, Spider, unless you decide to make it easy on yourself by surrendering.
Me? Surrender? You must be joking, Sandman. Just because you can knock a few of my henchmen around doesn't mean you're anywhere near being a match for yours truly.
And with that, one of Dr. Spider's robotic arms reaches out, turns a control on the console beside him, something drops from the ceiling and fires a bolt of energy at Sandman with a...
Zap!
Gosh! The first panel of page 13. Sandman is unconscious on the floor. Dr. Spider and one of the hooded goons looming over him. Dr. Spider says,
Tie his hands behind his back and get rid of him. Having him around my hideout gives me the creeps.
Yes, master, says the hooded goon, who takes a rope and starts to tie it around the Sandman.
And so...
Yes, listeners, take a drink, for there is a full moon. We see two of the hooded goons casually hurling Sandman's body into the ocean from the top of a cliff. One of the goons says, Bye-bye, Sandman. We hope you like having fish for dinner. And the other one says, We mean, we hope you like being a fish dinner. Ha ha ha!
With a splash, the Sandman hits the water and plummets beneath the blackened depths.
Beautiful bit of Kirby action there. Lots of Kirby dots in the water.
And as the chilly waters shock him back to consciousness, he apprehends for the first time the truly ghastly fate in store for him.
Yes, because looming underwater in front of the Sandman, well, very helpfully, he thinks to himself, Gasp! A shark!
Meanwhile, high overhead...
Brilliant shot here. There seems to be a little trail of cosmic gold dust floating through the air and leading towards base number 114. And riding along on this trail of dust are Jed and Brute. Jed says,
Gosh, Mr. Brute, where are we?
Oh, beats me, kid. But wherever my pal Glob goes, he leaves a trail of nightmare dust as thick as pea soup. And it's leading us right to that island. And we can see, is that a full moon or is it just about a Kirby cosmic action? Anyway, it doesn't matter, listeners. You take a drink. The next panel, you can definitely take a drink because there is a very clear full moon, and we see Brute with Jed on his shoulder, standing at the bottom of the rocks leading up to Dr. Spider's base. Brute says, Heads up now, champ. We don't know what kind of earth-shaking world menace we might be on the verge of being up against.
Okay, Mr. Brute.
Jed and Brute have climbed to the top of the rocks, surrounding the base.
Suddenly...
we see the Sandman standing in front of them under an open portcullis. And listeners, I cannot tell you how many times I felt disappointed at not being able to see portcullis more times as an adult. Sandman waves to Brute and Jed, saying, Here I am, Jed. Over here.
Oh, wow. Sandman, are we glad to see you?
Says Jed, who starts rushing forward. Brute says, Jed, don't. Jed is saying,
We were worried that... Huh?
And he breaks off because dropping from above him is a conical metallic cage. Brute exclaims, That costume bozo ain't the real Sandman, Jed. It's a trap. Jed can only... As the cage drops into place, finally with a massive... Brute runs forward towards what we suspect is another android Sandman, saying, "Let go of that kid, you rusted-out robot creep." Grabs hold of the robot Sandman's head in the next panel, saying, "I knew you was a phony right from the get-go. Now I'm gonna... Hey, what are you, the tar baby or something? I can't let go." He's quoting all these dear listeners. There's a weird sound effect as Brute grabs hold of this Sandman, but then behind him, through the open doorway, rolls out Dr. Spider, saying,
"What's the matter, Brute? Didn't anyone ever bother to teach you about the power of static electricity?"
"He is a Dalek." Dr. Spider seems to have a gun or some kind of device in one of his robotic hands, and he fires it at Brute with a massive sound effect. A few of Dr. Spider's hooded goons move forward at this point. Dr. Spider says,
"Imprison them both with Glob inside his geodesic cell. In 2 hours, they can watch helplessly while I obliterate Washington."
"Yes, Dr. Spider," says the goon at the front.
Meanwhile, beneath the sea, the Sandman fights a desperate battle for survival.
Yes, we see the Sandman still with his arms tied behind his back, trying to dodge out of the way of the shark. My goodness, how long after the release of Jaws is this happening, incidentally? Jaws is back in the cinema really soon for its 50th anniversary, listeners, so this isn't too... This is probably very current.
Wow.
Very zeitgeisty. Sandman dodges the big fish and thinks, "Phew, he just missed me. But I can't keep dodging him forever. If only I can get him to..." Sandman has managed to manoeuvre his wrists into the shark's mouth. He continues to think, "Aha! He did it! His razor-sharp teeth weaken my ropes just enough to enable me to snap them!" And he does. Phew! The next panel with a pow! Sandman punches the shark on the nose, thinking, "Sorry, friend, but you're going to have to hunt up your supper somewhere else."
Presently,
We're back in base number 114. We can see Sandman perched on the roof looking down into the room as Dr. Spider, with his back to us, looks at Brute, Glob and Jed, who are all in the big glass prison. Dr. Spider is saying,
"Keep your eyes on the clock, kiddies. In just 90 minutes, America's capital city will be nothing more than a fading memory."
Jed isn't scared. He yells,
"The Sandman will find a way to stop you, you fiend." "Will he now? Well, it just so happens that your precious..."
He's interrupted by a Sandman drops into the room through the glass.
"What?"
"Surprise!" yells Sandman as he lands on the ground. He immediately grabs one of Dr. Spider's unfortunate goons, saying, "Sorry to have to ask you to do this for me, friend, but I haven't got time to search around for the key." And with a crash, he sends the poor goon flying, not poor at all, into the dome that was keeping the others prisoner. Brute emerges immediately, saying, "Say, that was pretty good, Sandman. I bet you've been practicing them muscle-building exercises I taught you." One of the goons is nearby, and Brute doesn't hesitate in punching him out with a
"Chock."
"Hi there, chum. Mind if I straighten your face a little?" says Brute. Glob has noticed something hanging up on the wall. He grabs it, saying,
"I've got your hypnosonic whistle, Sandman."
"Good going, Glob," says our hero. We then cut to Dr. Spider, operating some equipment, as he thinks,
"Curses! And double curses! The Sandman and his playmates are making mincemeat out of all my henchmen. It's time for me to be getting along. But first..."
Dr. Spider's machine clicks away merrily. In the first panel of page 17, Brute is saying, "Hey, Sandman, that Spider character's taking a powder. You want I should..." Huh? But he's interrupted because another Sandman has appeared and punches at him as Jed yells,
"Brute, watch out!"
We can see the real Sandman in the foreground of the panel, tussling with some of the hooded goons, as Glob steps forward with Sandman's whistle, saying,
"Stay back, Brute. I'll polish him off with the Sandman's whistle."
Brute continues to tussle with the ersatz arrival. Brute says, "Never mind that, Glob, old buddy. Me and old Tinhead here have a score of our own to settle." And with a whack and a right-handed punch, he sends the robot Sandman flying.
And then suddenly a secret wall panel slides open, and...
Unbelievably, listeners, I don't know where the heck this has come from. A weird robot with glowing red eyes is appearing behind this opening door. Jed yells,
"Oh my gosh, what's that?"
"Another of Dr. Spider's diversionary tactics. Hurry, Glob, hand me my whistle."
Quickly lifting his magic whistle to his lips, the Sandman looses a mind-bending hypnosonic blast. that quickly reduces the ferocious robot guard to a warm puddle of molten goo.
Well, that was good. It was nice of the robot to turn up, wasn't it, listeners? Yes, great shot rounds out page 17 of this robot melting. Very Jack Kirby-tastic, it must be said. Sandman can be heard exclaiming, "Now, come on! We still gotta stop Spider!"
The heroes race to the launching pad on the fortress's roof, but...
We see them arriving, the night sky behind them, as 3 missiles come firing out of an open hole on the side of the wall, and Dr. Spider's voice can be heard coming out of a speaker saying,
"You're too late as usual, Sandman. I'm escaping in one of these rockets, but you'll never guess which one."
"Oh my goodness, the fiend!" Brute points at the 3 flying rockets and says, "Hurry, Sandman! Use your whistle!"
He's right, Sandman. You could blow all these rockets to smithereens before they get out of range.
They're all looking up at the sky here as Sandman says, "I won't do it, boys. It's always wrong to take a human life, even when it's an evil life like Dr. Spider's." Brute is unimpressed at this point. He can only remark, "Dope."
Before long, a quick blast on the Sandman's whistle has sent young Jet whirling homeward in a burst of brilliant starlight. And, early the next morning...
We're in the kitchen, at Jed's auntie and uncle's. Everyone sat around. Jed is pouring the morning tea and smiling quietly to himself as Cousin Bruce is saying,
"But you gotta believe me, there was this big monster in my room last night. A great big ugly one."
His family look dismissive as Aunt Clarice says, "Oh, shush, Bruce. You know as well as I do you were just having a nightmare." And Jed continues to pour the coffee, continues to smile, as a small caption reads,
The end.
And while that was the last issue published in 70s, listeners, as we say, there was another issue prepared, issue 7, which turned up. I think it was issue 23 of Best of DC Digest, or Blue Ribbon Digest, which we will do later in the year. Very interesting difference in endings there.
Yes.
Given that the last time Dr. Spider rocked up, Sandman was quite happy just to blow him up, wasn't he?
Yeah, and thought he was blown up.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a little change, but yeah, it was good. The art change in this is a wee bit different, because Wally Wood's inks over Jack, it really kind of changes some of the aspects of it. Like Sandman's face looks very, I don't want to say un-Kirby-like, but it doesn't look like his standard kind of look. Obviously, you know, Wally Wood's very different from Mike Royer, who's previously inked the Sandman pages.
Yeah.
He brings his own style to him, but I mean, that scene in page 17 where Sandman's blowing the whistle, that's not a Jack Kirby face at all.
Yeah, I'm going to be possibly controversial here and say I prefer Mike Royer over Kirby than Wally Wood over Kirby. I think Wally's approach seems to soften things a little too much.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I think Mike Royer works very well with Kirby, and it's good. He keeps up the whole bombastic energy,
Yeah.
as it were. It's almost like someone said, let's try and humanise this a bit more.
Yeah.
Wood is a fantastic artist in his own right, but obviously sometimes the two don't really gel. I mean, it is definitely a change of artistic style. It's weird.
Another example is the first panel of page 7.
Mm-hmm.
Look at Sandman there. It doesn't look quite as...
Yeah.
It's very subtle, listeners. I mean, if you've got the page in front of you and you can take a look, you'll see. You hopefully see what you mean. But and we can't claim. Well, I can't claim to be a Jack Kirby expert, but it's very hard to articulate what the difference is. But I think if you were to compare this next to a panel or some pages from issue 5, you would definitely see the difference.
Yeah.
It's not that it's worse, but it just certainly looks different. But I think the Mike Roy stuff is a little starker and a little more effective. It just does seem like Wally just kind of maybe smooths the edges off a bit. Obviously, Wally does quite a lot of work in All-Star Comics, which we'll be coming to very soon, listeners. So we'll have lots more complimentary stuff to say about him when we get there. I would agree with you. I don't think it works just quite as well.
Another example is Jed's face at the bottom of page 7 as
Yes.
well. He looks very like young, handsome teenager there,
Yeah.
as opposed to the little boy in danger, which he kind of like has been throughout. You know, the scared little boy, like every man sort of boy, but he looks almost like a handsome lead.
Yeah.
There, you know, it's weird.
Yeah, it's very, very moodily lit. And I mean, it's interesting. I mean, obviously, if Jack penciled it, it's still Jack's story and Jack's layouts and all. I mean, top of page 3, for example, the Sandman floating in the water, that's unmistakable. The close-up of Dr. Spider later on the angling of the way the shark is sort of attacking that. I mean, that is very Jack, but
Yeah.
without overemphasising or labouring the point, it does look a little different.
Yeah.
It's an interesting story though, because this is the return of Dr. Spider. That's a recurring foe.
It is, yeah. I love Dr. Spider, and it's great fun to play as
I
well.
heard that rumour.
I became more lunatic as the story went along.
I was disappointed that his goons weren't as clearly numbered as they had been on previous occasions.
Yeah.
But not to worry, such is life.
All the Doctor Who goons, as you might have noticed, listeners.
Yeah.
No, great fun.
I mean, one thing, how were they going to destroy Washington?
Well, they're going to use the hypnosonic whistle, which can pretty much do
That's
anything.
right, of course. And Glob grabbed it back so he couldn't use it, so he then legged it.
Uh-huh.
Right, okay, that's fine.
But what is weird is the android Sandman also had a hypnosonic whistle, which he freed Brute and Glob with.
So he did? Oh, God. How'd you explain that one then?
Unless that was Sandman's whistle that he took, but that seems a bit weird because obviously you'd think Dr. Spider would want that. And the android Sandman didn't seem to realise that he needed it in order to release Brute and Glob. So,
Awkward silence as we both think about it for too long.
But it's still thoroughly entertaining. The list of chores poor Jed had to do. No wonder the boy was shattered. Forgive him for putting his elbows on the table at the end. That's shocking.
Yeah, I don't... We've lamented how sad it is we only got 6 issues this now. We would have liked to have seen a few more. I mean, I definitely get the sense that Sandman has an interest in Jed, as if he's maybe looking to either rescue him or train him up or take him on as a sort of a sidekick or something.
Yeah.
I think inevitably there would have come a point where the family would have maybe dropped out and Jed would have gone and lived in the dome sort of full time. I mean, we'll have to see what happens in the story from issue 7 when we read that. But
yeah, and the subsequent appearances of this version of the Sandman pre-crisis, we'll be doing all those as well.
Of course.
But yeah, it's weird because obviously this series, Jed's kind of like one of the main supporting characters, but there was that one issue that he didn't feature in at all, and it was a different kid.
Yeah, aye.
Which is weird because, they never really went back to that. They thought, no, let's stick with Jed. Jed's working. Let's stick with that.
Yeah, I mean, that's again, which I think emphasises what I was saying about them having a connection. I'm going to have to revisit the 90s stories he's in as well, just to remind myself of how he was dealt with there, because I can't really remember. It's been a long time since I read them. So yeah, this will be the last time we do our Brute and Glob and Sandman voices for a while.
Yeah.
Quite a straightforward sort of story. I like the contemporary shark usage. That was good. That was,
Yeah, I'll be honest, I hadn't really thought about the time frame of that, but you're bang on. It is just after Jaws came out, so that's fun.
So that's pretty cool, because obviously there's an issue of Ghost Rider when he's fighting a shark underwater, and there's that famous Superman cover that the apes, the poster.
The Action Comics one, yeah.
There's an issue, I think, Spidey Super Stories that references it as well. Just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water, the return of Dr. Spider.
I know. I love Dr. Spider. It's a great look. As we said, it is like a cross between Doc Ock, Davros and Mojo. It's a really weird mashup. The whole 8 arms, but they're not even proper arms. They're just like thin metallic pincery things on extended tendrils. It's just so bizarre and such a weird look.
Yeah, I mean, he is absolute nightmare fuel. He's really suitably grotesque and quite scary looking, very much so.
Do you think he has more than 114 secret bases? Or is that this final base?
I always sort of think with these sort of things, it always takes me out of it when I'm watching certain James Bond films. You always sort of think, right, I've worked on building sites, and you sort of think, how did you get this done? Who's gone round and fitted and installed and maintained these dozens and dozens of secret bases all over the world? I want the proper origin of Dr. Spider. I want to know who he is.
Oh, me too.
What he was, what happened to him, how he ended up with, who designed these octopus arms that he has. There's so much untapped potential in this little corner of the universe.
When we write our DC comic, it will be Dr. Spider forming his own secret society of supervillains and his entire backstory.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And the entire team will be DC legacy characters like the Fiddler.
All the Fiddlers.
And one of the Tarantulas and all that stuff.
Yes. Secret Society of Supervillains? What could that possibly be? Something we're maybe covering quite soon in the podcast?
Yes. Yeah, listeners, like the first couple of months this year, we've strayed a little bit away from the plot with J.S. April and the Fantastic Four stuff and some of the flashbacks we've done to give us breath. But hopefully, going forward, apart from a couple of minor side steps, like obviously there's going to be another Road to First Issue special, and we're planning something before a quite monumentous team up that we're going to do. Hopefully, for the rest of the year, we'll be able to stay on mission and stay on plot and get properly into that period when there was a few ongoing series that were relevant to our mission.
Yes. Yeah, so stay tuned for all those.
They'll all be coming very, very soon. And some of them have obviously been reprinted, like Secret Society and All-Star Comics. But DC Comics, if you're listening, if you want to throw out a complete collection of the Freedom Fighters at any time in the next few months, that would be very handy for our listeners. Please do.
A DC Finest would be good.
Yeah, because it could put in the DC Comics Presents issue as well. And
And also the JLA JSA team up.
yeah, that would work.
Yeah,
That's
the
a
full
thought.
thing.
Yeah.
That'd be nice. One lovely volume.
I don't know who's in charge of planning reprints these days at DC, but if you're listening, I'll maybe send my good Twitter pal Jerry Ordway a message and see if he knows.
Could do.
The Sandman. I want some more, but we're not going to have any more for a little while. I mean, I think I've probably agreed that we're going to do issue 7 as our Christmas Day episode this year, given that Santa Claus is involved.
Yeah, we'll definitely be doing it at some point. Yes.
Jed and the Sandman will return, listeners. Fear you not, for one last hurrah in a few months' time.
There we are.
I've really enjoyed doing this entire series.
Yes, me too. Me too. Sadly, it's because this is the last issue. There's no current letters or correspondence from the readers. We don't know how they reacted to Wallywood's inks over Jack Kirby. We've no idea, which is a shame. But what do you think about Wallywood's inks over Jack Kirby? What do you think about the story? What do you think about the Sandman series in general, listeners? You can get in touch with us at the F2podcast@gmail.com and let us know. Make sure you follow us on social media because we're putting up lots of lovely bonus material for this and indeed every episode. On Facebook and Instagram, we're at the Earth 2 Podcast, and on Twitter, we're at podcast_Earth2, and it is the number 2 for all of our socials.
It certainly is, listeners. If you're feeling generous, you go to wherever it is you receive your podcast and leave us a positive review or spread the word. Encourage everyone you know to download every episode
That's it.
of our
Subscribe.
show. You could find your way to our coffee page and buy Peter the Price for beverage as he edits all these quickly in time for the release bit. I think you've got a little bit longer a little bit less to edit before next week as compared to last week.
Yes, JS April totally ate up our buffer that we'd built up.
Yeah.
But now, we're slowly building it up again. But yes, weekly release schedules, that is always the plan for us.
Yep. Has to be done because, as you said recently, it would take us, 40 years to get through it otherwise.
Yep, very true, very true. On that bombshell.
On that bombshell.
I've been Peter.
I've been David. Thank you for joining us. Sleep well, and we'll see you again soon on
The Earth
The Earth 2 podcast.
Transmatter cube activated. Return coordinates set for Earth Prime.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 Podcast, your weekly exploration of the DC Comics multiverse and the Lego. I was about to say Lego. Why would I say Lego?
And the Lego of their golden age heroes through the Silver and Bronze Age of comics. He's Peter Watson.
And he's got pincers for fingers. Hey everyone, welcome to the Earth 2 Podcast.
That was fine.
What?
Listen, right, if you want, okay, right, okay.
No, I'll do it properly.
Do it,
That'll be the
do it.
outtake.
Right.
That'll be the outtake.